Hi there and welcome to my video on attitudes. So at the top there we've got the definition of attitudes. Okay, so have a read of that. An emotional response that influences behaviour and brings about an individual's typical actions towards an attitude object. Okay, and the attitude object, for example, is football or rugby, or an attitude towards a sport in this example. So an attitude can be positive or negative. An attitude is learned, typical response based on the belief of an attitude object. Attitudes can last a lifetime but are unstable, meaning they can be changed. So think back to personalities. So attitudes now are unstable and they can be changed. Okay, so we're going to look at how we can change people's attitudes. So for example, these people here, an athlete may have a positive attitude towards training as it is enjoyable and they believe that it benefits their performance. And over here, let's give an example of a person who have a negative or a bad attitude towards women weightlifting as they believe it to be a sport more suited to men. Okay, so that just gives an overview of how attitudes work. So this slide looks at the factors affecting attitude formation and whereabouts we get our attitudes from, and it highlights these key areas. So attitudes are formed by previous experiences. So pleasurable experiences lead to a positive attitude, whereas unpleasant experiences lead to negative attitudes. I'm not sure anything there you would disagree with. That's fairly straightforward. Then the following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are just some examples of how we can change or we can form our attitude towards something. So the norms of a social group develop the attitudes of its individual members. Think about the group that you're in, okay, your team that you might have. You might have similar attitudes towards certain situations. So for example, the group norm might be to join team sports like cricket because a lot of your friends in your social group say that that's the way it should be. Or you might go to university and get in with a different group. Okay, they might all suggest that it might be better to play something new like lacrosse or a different sport. But your social groups have a massive influence on our attitudes. Again, peers often influence the formation of attitudes, so male dancers may be discouraged by their peers. Okay, it's a good example. If someone in your group, if you are male and want to get into dancing, potentially your peers will discourage you away from that, and that'll be forming your attitude, saying that dance is for girls. Religious beliefs may shape your attitude. Some athletes feel they cannot compete on a Sunday. Okay, so maybe that is out of the control. Okay, the religious belief that you may have would form your attitude to a sport. Down here, we have attitudes are shaped by role models. Again, that's why it's so important that professionals on television have got good behaviour, making sure the attitudes of the people watching them are following in their footsteps. Media, again, we see a lot of sport in the media, and that shapes a lot of our attitudes around how we think about different types of sports. Cultural factors may form attitudes. A gender role perception. Few women strive to be Olympic weightlifters. Now again, we could talk about ERP lessons. We know we don't offer netball to the boys. Okay, that's a cultural factor. So now the boys have an attitude that netball is for girls. And again, we are slowly changing the attitude, but maybe girls rugby. Okay, it's perceived as a man's sport, but we are changing that culture, not only in the school I work in, but also in the country. And then educational influences our beliefs. Okay, so you might have your belief that if you do get involved in outdoor education, this can lead to an appreciate and respect the natural environment. Now we're looking at the makeup of an attitude, and it's suggested in this triadic model, attitudes have 3 elements or components. So start off with the cognitive component up at the top. Now, this is what we believe in or have the knowledge about the attitude object. So, but let's use running for example. Okay, if you go running, it helps improve my cardiovascular system. Okay, so that is the cognitive element in your brain, knowing that if you go for a run, it's going to improve your cardiovascular system. Okay, so that's the first part of forming an attitude. Then move down to number 2. where we've got the affective component. This is how we feel about the attitude object. Okay, this is our emotions. So whether the attitude object gives us a good feeling. Enjoyment will produce a positive emotional feeling. For example, I enjoy the physical feeling when I go for a run. Then it comes across to the behavioural component. Now the behavioural component is how we behave towards, respond to, or intend to respond to the attitude object. It talks about our behaviour. So the response of the behaviour towards the attitude object. So in this example, it is running. Now, if the cognitive and the affective components are positive, that we've talked about here, so you've got, it's a positive knowledge that going for a run will help your cardiovascular system, and also that you're going to get the nice emotions because you enjoy going for the run. Okay, then the response to the attitude object will be positive. So if we bring that all into a final example, I believe running has fitness benefits, cognitive component, and the activity is enjoyable. Therefore, I will go for a run. Now, that example is a positive attitude. So it's called the triadic model. Okay, you must understand 1 and 2, which will result in 3. Okay, so it might be worth just taking time now to think about your favourite sport or the attitude object, and maybe just follow that through and see what you come to. Right, now we need to know about the methods of changing attitude. Now, there are 2 ways that we can change people's attitudes. The first one we'll look at is persuasive communication. This involves changing an attitude using verbal persuasion. Okay, and the persuasive communication theory has 4 components. The first one is the persuader. Okay, so we use this example in here. This person here, okay, is the persuader. This person needs to have high status, e.g. the coach of the team. So if we're going to change attitudes, okay, of this group of people, okay, that person, again, needs to be significant. It needs to have high status. Otherwise, it's not going to have the same effect. Then we're moving down to number 2, the recipient. Okay, an attitude is easily changed if the recipient really wants it to change. E.g. the player understands why change is needed. Okay, so let's use this for example. You've got him as a high status, okay, and these will understand that they need to change their attitude because they're losing. Okay, they haven't won a game for 5 games. Okay, so it's easier to change when these lot want to change, which I'd imagine they would do because they're losing, and they understand why they need to change. Okay, they need to change maybe the formation, or they might want to change their attitude towards training. Okay, but they need to know why changing their attitude might impact on their performance. Then we come across to number 3, the message. This needs to be presented in a way that makes the player want to change. E.g., you have the skill to perform this tactic. Okay, so if this coach is here saying we are going to change tactics, okay, the message is going to be quite motivating, making sure that these people here want to change, but also that they've got the skill to do it. So he's going to say that I believe in you. We can do this, right? If you believe in what I'm going to say to you. And the final stage, okay, I'll just get one of my arrows. Okay, coming down here is the situation. Attitudes are changed more easily if the persuaders are present, e.g. team members, to provide encouragement. So we might want to take it for an example that the coach, okay, he's trying to change this little chap here, change his attitude. Now it is much easier for that attitude to change if these people are present and they want him to change too, okay? So they can provide encouragement to him. Or it could be holistically, it could be they've all got to change their attitude, but if they're all buying into it and they all want to change the situation, it'll be much easier to change that person's attitude or the group. And you just take a second now just to follow this through, okay, with the arrows, and hopefully that will get you a decent understanding of persuasive communication. Okay, and we'll look at the other method now for changing attitude. Okay, it's cognitive dissonance. Okay, so this model is slightly different to the persuasive communication. Okay, so according to this theory, individuals like to be consistent in what they do feel or believe, okay, which is the triadic model. This theory results in the individuals having contradictory thoughts about something or someone, which creates an attitude. So let's give an example of a rugby player. They might believe that aerobics is too girly. So the coach tells him that some of the fittest people do aerobics to improve their stamina. This attack on that player's belief causes a change in attitude, and the player now does aerobic to keep fit. So if you use the model that we've got in front of you here, what this model is suggesting that by changing one component of the triadic model, either the cognitive, the affective, or the behavioural component, the whole negative attitude can be changed. So just think about that for a second. Changing one component of attitude causes psychological discord and conflict. A person will become uncertain and emotionally unsettled, and what we call in two minds. So this conflict between the two ideas is cognitive dissonance. So have a think about that. Okay, changing one of the components of the triadic model, okay, will result in that. So cognitive dissonance is a good way to change a negative attitude because a person is motivated to restore the balance, the attitude components. Okay, so we're looking at trying to get the balance back. So motivation to recreate harmony is called drive for consonance, and consonance is the opposite of dissonance. Quite a hard word to say. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just pause that now and have a read through the green section. Okay, so we'll now have a look at the white section down here, which is an example used for swimming. Okay, the following example of cognitive dissonance theory focuses on the negative attitudes towards learning to swim. So let's say this person has got a negative attitude towards swimming. Changing the cognitive element requires changing the belief or the knowledge about an attitude object. E.g., learning to swim helps you keep safe. So they're understanding that if you can learn how to swim, okay, and if we give them the knowledge that if you do learn to swim, it's going to keep you safe. There's a reason behind learning to swim, okay? So that's going to be the cognitive element, okay? We're trying to make that positive. We could change the affective element, requires changing the emotions or the feelings. For example, learning with toys is fun, and the water in the learner pool is warm, okay? Remember we were talking about here, it's about the emotions of that sport. So if we're saying here, there's pools in our area that are freezing cold, okay, it's not very enjoyable to get in, okay, so the chances are they're going to have this is going to be a negative element to attitude. Again, when learning to swim, we can use these floats, some mechanical guidance there to try and make it more fun, okay, so we're talking about the emotions. Or we could be changing the behavioural element, changes the action towards the attitude object. For example, using mechanical guidance, as we've just said, or simplifying the task using armbands or other flotation aids makes swimming easier. Now, if we can change any of them, okay, we're going to get a positive attitude towards swimming. Okay, so it's getting a little bit heavier now, is the content, so it might be worth just pausing that and going through it and try and give an example here. If you've got a negative attitude or a poor attitude to something, have a run through it. I would maybe use a core PE example where sometimes we can have, we're trying to change people's attitude to exercise. So again, what we try and do as PE teachers is give the students who haven't taken GCSE or A-Level PE, we need to give them the knowledge that if they do core PE, that they're going to reduce the risk of coronary heart disease, they might lose weight, we might want to talk about serotonin. Try and give them some knowledge, and we do that by doing assemblies, we do that our teachers, we try and get it across in every lesson. Again here, we try to make it fun, okay, we try to make the PE lessons as fun as possible. That will make sure the affective element is happy, okay, and they enjoy it coming down, and hopefully this will give them nice behavioural elements where they actually come down and enjoy PE and try and get not only the feeling of it but also understanding of it.